Tonight, amid speculation and suspicion, new revelations about the MPs accused of helping foreign states.
There is no list of MPs who have shown disloyalty to Canada.
She read the top secret report and says she's relieved who is named, who is not, and why Elizabeth May says she's speaking out. Guilty. The U.S. president's son convicted on federal gun charges.
No one in this country is above the law.
What a juror is revealing about the deliberations. Why plant-based doesn't always mean healthy.
Sometimes these things get a halo of health put around them.
The health risks of ultra-processed plant-based foods.
From CBC News, this is The National with Ian Hennemanson.
After days of rampant speculation on Parliament Hill, tonight, for the first time, we're getting a fuller picture of what's inside that explosive top-secret report alleging some MPs helped foreign states interfere in Canadian politics. Until now, the public has had limited information from the heavily redacted document. But Green Party leader Elizabeth May read the full report. And while she's limited in what she can reveal, there are some key points she was able to share. Evan Dyer walks us through those details and why she says she spoke out.
Only a small number of MPs with top secret security clearance can read the original report, and Elizabeth May is one of them.
I found myself looking around at colleagues, wondering who could it be? Who would sell out this country?
Before she read it,
I would describe myself before reading the report as good and freaked out.
but she says she came away reassured.
I can say I have no worries about anyone in the House of Commons. There is no list of MPs who have shown disloyalty to Canada.
Speculation has run rampant since last week when a cross-party committee of MPs and senators released a heavily redacted report alleging some parliamentarians were wittingly or semi-wittingly helping foreign governments meddle in Canadian affairs. May says no sitting MP is accused of knowing collusion.
Saying, as I do, that I'm relieved does not mean that there is nothing to see here, folks.
She says the report does mention one unnamed former MP who did knowingly give privileged information to a foreign operative.
This individual was entirely aware of the circumstances and was witting. That person, former MP, whose name is not included in the report, should be fully investigated and prosecuted.
May says there is a small group of MPs who may have been compromised by foreign governments, for example, in party nomination races.
I want to make certain that there is none of my MPs which has any kind of implication with the foreign and hostile power.
Today, Bloc leader Yves-François Blanchet says he's getting clearance to read the report.
I feel this is my duty.
And the PM went after the leader of the opposition for not doing the same.
Elizabeth May took on her responsibilities as party leader, got her security clearance, and did the work. Mr. Poilievre should do that too. He is choosing ignorance so he can play partisan politics.
But Trudeau's number two asked twice if the Liberals would expel any caucus member who knowingly worked for a foreign power, refused to answer.
Evan, a lot of people might be wondering why they're only hearing these details now, to the extent that they're details, and why they're hearing it from the leader of the Green Party.
Well, the leader of the Green Party, Elizabeth May, was able to read this report because she has the very highest security clearance, and therefore she can. And Jagmeet Singh, who also has a high clearance, plans to read it himself tomorrow. But she also made it clear, Ian, that she read it with a view to communicating as much of it as she could to the public without breaking laws. And so for that reason, she coordinated with the Privy Council to find out just exactly how much she could say. And that's really the reason for the very measured tone of the comments that we saw today.
Evan Dyer in Ottawa. The Liberals' plan to increase the capital gains tax passed in the House despite Conservative opposition. As Kate McKenna shows us, Pierre Poilievre hadn't taken a stance on the plan, but today the government forced his hand.
After months of refusing to take a position, Pierre Poilievre came out swinging.
Now his solution is to bring in a giant job-killing tax on health care, homes, farms, and small businesses.
The government plans to tax Canadians and corporations more on the profits of assets like real estate and stocks, known as capital gains. It says this will only affect the richest Canadians and will bring in billions in new revenue.
The Conservatives are coming out against fairness. They think a nurse or a plumber should pay tax at a higher rate than a multimillionaire. Canadians are watching. Canadians now see whose side the Conservatives are on.
But some doctors and farmers say they're being unfairly dinged, and business groups warn it'll hamper growth.
The finance minister is about to impose another job-killing, wage-cutting, price-hiking tax on Canadians, and she wants us to believe the latest fairy tale that somehow we'll all be better off if the Prime Minister just raises taxes again.
This vote was always going to pass. The Liberals' deal with the NDP gives them a majority. The Bloc Québécois voted for it too.
Yeas pour 208, 208. Nays contre 118, 118.
Je déclare la motion adoptée.
But the government wanted to force Conservatives to take a position, creating a wedge.
Conservatives stand with the wealthy while we stand with the middle class.
Wonder why we can't have nice things in Canada anymore?
Conservatives put out a video saying more taxes are not the solution.
We need to overhaul the system to make taxes low, simple, and fair.
Poilievre says if he's elected Prime Minister, he'll create a task force of working people to come up with a plan to lower taxes. Meanwhile, the changes to capital gains are set to take effect on June 25th. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
A tentative deal has been reached with Canada's border workers, averting a potential strike at the start of a busy summer travel season. The Public Service Alliance of Canada, which represents more than 9,000 CBSA workers, called it a well-deserved victory. Workers have been without a contract for 2 years. The union had set a Friday deadline for job action. Now to the U.S., where for the first time, a child of a sitting president has been convicted of a crime. Hunter Biden was found guilty today of lying about his drug use to buy a gun. Chris Reyes brings us the reaction.
In a clear show of family unity, Hunter Biden walked out of the courthouse a convicted felon, hand in hand with his stepmother, First Lady Jill Biden, and his wife. And later in the day, greeted his father at Delaware Airport. Hunter Biden was found guilty of lying about his drug use on a government form when he bought a revolver in 2018.
No one in this country is above the law. Everyone must be accountable for their actions, even this defendant.
The conviction, a first for a child of a sitting president, comes on the heels of another historic criminal trial. Donald Trump's guilty verdict in New York.
This shows the difference.
Democrats and Republicans using the cases to prove their own points about the justice system.
Clearly, the evidence was overwhelming here. I don't think that's the case in the Trump trials.
What would Republicans point to as a two-tiered system of justice when the president's son was just convicted?
From inside the deliberation room, a juror attesting that their decision had nothing to do with politics.
President Biden never really even came into play for me because his name was only brought up once during the trial.
How do you plan to make your case?
Hunter Biden has been open about his drug addiction and road to recovery leading up to getting sober in 2019. Something his father has said he's very proud of, even as he did not make any mention of his son's conviction at a gun safety conference in Washington right after the verdict. Instead, issuing a statement of support. He says he accepts the verdict and won't pardon his son. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
Ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas appear to have hit another roadblock. Hamas responded to a U.S.-backed proposal to end the war. Our Sasha Petrusik has been tracking the developments. And Sasha, what can you tell us?
Well, Ian, we know Hamas's response is 4.5 pages long, submitted to Egyptian and Qatari mediators, and of course it's also being closely examined by Washington. But beyond that, there's not a lot of details. The militant group says it will deal positively to come to an agreement, but it's also insisting on one very sticky condition: a complete stop to fighting, basically an Israeli withdrawal before anything else happens. It's all being watched very closely.
For Palestinians in Gaza, the U.S.-backed ceasefire plan is a desperate dream for war to stop. I want the bloodshed to finally end, he says.
Ceasefire now, hostage deal now.
For families of Israeli hostages waiting for U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken in Tel Aviv, it's a way to pressure their own government, which they say isn't listening. After meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Blinken insisted Israel is on board with the proposal that would see hostages released and Israeli troops pulled out of Gaza.
We have the prospect of an immediate ceasefire, building toward an enduring one.
If only Gaza's militant leaders would agree, he says.
So everyone's vote is in, except for one vote, and that's Hamas.
Now that Hamas's answer is in, a whole new round of negotiations is likely to start, haggling over every detail, because the two sides simply don't trust each other.
In this negotiation, there's absolutely no sense of a margin for one side or another giving one another the benefit of the doubt.
As you mentioned, talks appear to be at a standstill. What else are they up against?
Well, experts say that the other big stumbling block is that despite Washington's pressure, and there's been a lot of it, neither side may be in any real hurry to stop fighting. Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar in Gaza because he believes Palestinians are winning the world public relations war. And Netanyahu because his hardline coalition partners simply won't let him retreat.
Sasha Petrusik reporting tonight from Toronto. We're getting a clearer picture of Canada's rental housing crisis and how difficult it can be to find affordable housing. CBC News analyzed more than 1,000 neighborhoods in Canada's largest cities and found less than 1% of rentals were both vacant and affordable for most renters. If you're wondering what you can afford to rent and where, check out our new interactive tool at cbcnews.ca. And if you'd like to share your story, you can email ask@cbc.ca. An Ontario man was found not criminally responsible today for his role in a horrific death. 2 years ago, he attacked a woman he didn't know on a public bus and set her on fire. That woman later dying in hospital. Thomas Dagla now on the man's mental illness that went misdiagnosed.
One afternoon 2 years ago, Nima Doma boarded a Toronto public transit bus and sat in the back. A stranger in a black T-shirt followed seconds later. In those grainy pictures, Tenzin Norbu is seen reaching into a bag and pulling out a jar of lighter fluid, dousing the woman and setting her on fire. A 28-year-old nursing student, Doma died in hospital with burns covering 60% of her body.
I know someone watching TV would say, oh, lock someone up who did that. But you don't treat someone who's sick the same way you treat someone who's not sick.
In a courtroom Tuesday, Norbu sat silently as a judge found him not criminally responsible due to a mental disorder. I am satisfied on a balance of probabilities that Mr. Norbu was actively psychotic at the time of the offense, the judge said. He was unable to distinguish right from wrong.
The idea that if he had been treated earlier, yes, that's a very distinct possibility. None of this would have happened.
Evidence suggests Norbu had been misdiagnosed with depression, while for years showing symptoms of schizophrenia. Suffering paranoid delusions, he targeted the victim believing she had intimate video of him. Her life celebrated by Toronto's Tibetan community. Doma was remembered in court by her sister. The prospect of the accused being released fills our family with a profound sense of dread and anguish, she wrote. For others, the case highlights a need for mental health support earlier.
The police and the justice system are not a substitute for proactive mental health care.
A provincial tribunal will now decide in which hospital Norbu should be held and treated. He'll be detained until he's no longer considered a threat to public safety. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Toronto.
The search for the remains of 2 murdered Indigenous women in a Manitoba landfill is moving ahead and will likely start by the end of the summer.
We are starting the search. We are going to try to bring the remains of your loved ones home.
Site preparations continue in the area where the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron are believed to be, and a sample ground search in a separate area will begin this month. A plastics plant in Sarnia, Ontario will shut down permanently by June 2026. The company called it a business decision, but the plant was also under provincial and federal orders to reduce benzene emissions, a cancer-causing chemical. In April, several members of a nearby First Nation were treated for benzene exposure. Celine Dion is speaking out about living with the disease stiff person syndrome in an interview with NBC News.
It's like somebody's strangling you. It's like somebody's pushing your pharynx this way. So it's like you're talking like that, and you cannot go high or lower. It gets into a spasm.
Adrian also sat down with Celine Dion for her only Canadian interview in English. You can stream it Thursday morning on CBC Gem, on our YouTube page, and watch it that night here on The National. And on Friday on CBC Television, a 1-hour primetime special, Celine Dion, I Will Sing Again, airs at 8 p.m. A new study out tonight is looking at plant-based diets and why not all of them are made equal.
The strategy is often to health wash the products and make them appear healthier than they actually are.
The ultra-processed foods you might want to avoid coming up. Even as the war rages on, Ukraine looks to rebuild.
Was your house right here?
Briar Stewart is on the ground and brings us that next. And later, a dream come true for a young transit fan.
Attention all passengers in coach 257.
His big announcement. We're back in 2. Rescue operations are underway in southern Chile after heavy rains led to major flooding. According to local media, hundreds of houses have been flooded in a region south of Santiago. Authorities say evacuation orders are in place for low-lying areas, and there's more rain in the forecast. Volodymyr Zelensky is once again appealing for help. He says Ukraine needs money not only to fight the war, but to rebuild vital infrastructure destroyed by Russian attacks. Briar Stewart is in northern Ukraine tonight, speaking with residents who have endured that loss and destruction.
Below the cellar door, Alexander's mother and daughter huddled in a dark basement as Russia's military began its attack on the city of Irpin, just outside of Kyiv. Around 300 civilians were killed in the city during the first month of the invasion here, before Russia retreated at the end of March in 2022. Today, some of the nearly 2,000 buildings that were destroyed in Irpin are being rebuilt, but much slower than residents hoped. They promised we could move in the new year, and now they're saying the autumn, said Alexander. It's probably not going to happen.
Was your house right here?
Across the street, Volodya shows us the shell of a house that belongs to his daughter.
That's what it looked like after the Russians left.
Everything was burning.
Only the ash was left. It's estimated that it will cost nearly $700 billion to reconstruct Ukraine, and that number will only rise as more communities are left in ruin. One of Putin's main targets in Ukraine is energy, said Volodymyr Zelensky to a crowd at an international conference focused on recovery. But at a time when Ukraine is looking to shore up funds and investment to rebuild, two of its key players were absent. The head of Ukraine's reconstruction agency resigned one day before the conference, saying the government was undermining his work, while Ukraine's infrastructure minister was dismissed last month.
I think there was a certain degree of uncertainty as to, okay, that you've dismissed these people, who's going to be put in their place?
Daniel Bilak is a Canadian lawyer who works and lives in Ukraine and is part of the team at the conference trying to attract investment to help Ukraine rebuild.
This is not a normal situation. You're not rebuilding these homes and these communities in a peacetime situation. You're building them, trying to rebuild them in a wartime situation.
And he says it's being done with fewer workers because hundreds of thousands are needed on the front line.
Briar, with so much destruction in Ukraine, what's the focus when it comes to rebuilding?
Well, officials say right now the concern is this country's energy infrastructure. Ukraine's president has said that since the winter, Russian attacks have wiped out half of this country's electricity production. And at the conference in Germany, he said that that's enough infrastructure to power the cities of Berlin and Munich combined. There are now rolling blackouts across this country. And I spoke with an economist who said it's not just about Ukraine securing the money to rebuild the grid, but in some cases it could be a challenge for the country to secure the technology they need quickly.
Barry Stewart once again tonight in Ukraine. Malawi's vice president and 9 others are confirmed dead in a plane crash.
Words cannot describe how heartbreaking this is.
In a televised address, the president said the wreckage was found today. The plane went missing on Monday on a 45-minute flight from the nation's capital to an airport in the north. Air traffic controllers say they lost contact with the plane after advising it to turn back due to bad weather and poor visibility. New research out tonight is shedding light on plant-based diets, why some may be good for you and others not so much.
This is kind of one of our first signals suggesting that they aren't that good for us.
The dangers of ultra-processed foods. Plus, the U.S. is pushing hard for a new ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. What's on the table and the politics that could be holding it up. We'll break that down. And later, as the right rises in Europe, Emmanuel Macron makes a big gamble.
He's trying to bank on the fear of voters.
What's behind the snap election call in France? The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next. An update to a story we brought you last month. A Saskatchewan farmer found a huge chunk of a SpaceX rocket in his field. Well, today he handed it back to the company. Barry Sawchuk says he'll use the money he was paid to help fund a new rink in his community. Plant-based foods are having a moment, but it's not all as healthy as it seems. A new study found that plant-based ultra-processed foods can raise the risk of heart disease. Christine Burak now in the research and what you should keep in mind.
Because now we can turn plants into burgers and hot dogs.
Yes, they're plant-based foods, but they're also ultra-processed. Question is, are they still just as good for you? A new study says, no, they're not.
This is kind of one of our first signals suggesting that they aren't that good for us.
Brazilian researchers looked at the implications of food ultra-processing on heart health from plant origin foods. Based on over 100,000 people surveyed in the UK, they found increasing your intake of plant-based foods by 10%, including fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, whole grains, and beans, can lower your risk of having a heart attack or stroke. But eating plant-based ultra-processed foods, things like buns, margarine, bread, and cookies, appear to do the opposite, increasing your risk.
The real question that somebody like me has is why is that? And we don't know that answer yet.
Inside this lab at the University of Toronto, they're trying to figure out how various nutrients affect our body. What we do know is most ultra-processed foods are industrially formulated with additives and preservatives, promoting convenience and shelf life, and their marketing is evolving.
The strategy is often to health wash the products and make them appear healthier than they actually are.
Studies have shown half our daily calories come from ultra-processed foods, especially kids. This dietitian's advice, try to buy whole, unpackaged foods.
Yes, we can have convenience foods, but we need to look at the labels to see which are ultra-processed and which are just processed or cooked from scratch.
She adds, the shorter the ingredient list, the better. And researchers insist, as some try to cut back on meat and dairy products, filling up on plant-based junk foods is not a healthier option. Christine Burak, CBC News, Toronto.
The reigning champion of Nathan's famous 4th of July hot dog eating contest has been booted from the competition after signing with a vegan sponsor.
Joey Chestnut!
Joey Chestnut struck a deal with a plant-based hot dog maker, Impossible Foods. That's a rival company of Nathan's. Chestnut is a 16-time champion of the event and has been competing since 2005. Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world. What's behind the French president's snap decision to call a snap election when France's far right seems more popular than ever?
You have far-right sympathizers that are saying that now is their time to shine.
But first, making sense of the ceasefire plan that could stop the violence in Gaza.
We can help bring about peace.
The U.S. proposed it. The UN Security Council backed it. The U.S. Secretary of State says Israel is on board. Now Hamas has answered and says its response opens a pathway to a deal. But Israel says Hamas's response changes too many terms and is effectively a rejection. So let's get expert perspective from Aaron David Miller, a former Middle East negotiator with the U.S. State Department. We spoke earlier today. Aaron, do you have a sense of how close we may be to having a deal struck?
It's impossible to know. It's a 4.5-page text. I haven't seen it. You haven't seen it. The Americans, the Qataris, the Egyptians, the Israelis, and the Palestinians have seen it. The Israelis, at least the War Cabinet, has approved it. It was based on an Israeli proposal. Actually, it was an Israeli proposal. Hamas has now come back with a response to the Qataris. The Israelis, an official was quoted basically saying it was a rejection. I think the real question is this a yes, but that would be grounds, a reasonable yes, but on the part of Hamas, or that might prompt further negotiations? Or is it just a no? The first would create a serious challenge for the Israeli prime minister and the right-wing government. The second would provide him with a way out. So I don't think we know right now. My sense is that Hamas is not in a hurry, and they're going to want guarantees and assurances on any number of elements within this, within the president's laying out of an Israeli proposal.
These two parties, of course, don't speak to each other directly. They have some goals which they describe as absolute, which are probably unacceptable to the other side. So there has to be some room for compromise. Speaking of rooms, you've been there in the past when the United States is involved in negotiations. Give us a sense, as best you can imagine, of what the Americans' role would be, especially right now, as it sounds like, you know, Hamas is demanding changes.
I mean, I've participated in a lot of negotiations, but this is not a typical, traditional, conventional negotiation. I mean, there are three reasons that make this very curious and fraught. Number one, the principal Palestinian decision maker, Yahya Sinwar, is ensconced somewhere holding hostages. Number two, the U.S. has never really participated in a negotiation with a terrorist organization with which it has absolutely no contact. And the third issue is all of this is being done indirectly via intermediaries, the Qataris and the Egyptians, both of whom have their own interests, in essence, and makes it even more difficult, it seems to me. So again, it's not a conventional negotiation where American pressure and persuasion can be applied directly to both parties. And that makes it extremely difficult. The other reality is negotiations work when both parties are in a hurry. And I have to say, in terms of, if I would order them, in terms of urgency, there's no urgency on Hamas's part. There's little or none on the part of the government of Israel, certainly the prime minister. And the party that is in the most hurry is the Biden administration. And that, in a negotiation, that is a very bad situation to be in. The worst thing you can do is send a signal to your negotiating partners that you want this deal more than they do. And that happens to be the case here.
In a divided America, with the presidential election coming up in a few months' time, with camps in the United States, some are resolutely pro-Israeli, some who are absolutely behind the Palestinians, would the American negotiators, and presumably the answer is yes, feel that kind of political pressure?
Yeah, but let's be clear about one thing. The election is November 5. And neither you nor I nor anyone, frankly, knows precisely how Americans are going to vote. And anything in an election that may be determined by 3 states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, with fewer than 100,000 votes, anything can turn it. Gaza, a Trump conviction as a felon, a Trump sentencing, the debate on June 27 between Biden and the former president, anything can turn this election, including numbers of Americans who are angry and disillusioned with the president's policies on Gaza.
1 minute left. This is a fast-moving story, and things may change even between the time we're talking now and later on tonight. But what are you looking for over the next few hours?
I mean, I really would like to see an objective evaluation of what Hamas has come back with. And I think that'll be key. There's a difference between a yes, but that is really a no, and a yes, but that is reasonable, in which there is room for continued negotiation. And that's what I'll be looking to see, actually, what the American reaction is to what Hamas has delivered to the Qataris.
Aaron David Miller, a real pleasure speaking with you. Thanks.
Thanks, Ian. Pleasure.
Coming up, in the wake of the EU elections, France is heading to the polls.
He's trying to regain the initiative by calling this snap election.
Emmanuel Macron's risky move. We'll break down what's behind it next. France's right-wing parties consider alliances after President Emmanuel Macron's surprise election call.
This is suicide. This is suicide.
We break down Macron's political calculations at a time when far-right rivals seem more popular than ever.
He's trying to bank on the fear of voters.
What he stands to lose or gain once the dust has settled. Andrew Chang, the host of CBC's About That, looked at all the angles to clarify what's really going on.
Unless you follow French politics, the last 48 hours in French politics may have made very little sense to you.
President Emmanuel Macron has rolled the dice on his political future.
France has been plunged into snap elections.
This is clearly a gamble, and many on the left and even in his own ranks and in the government think it's too risky.
So let's try to get this straight. French President Emmanuel Macron wants to call a snap election against an opponent who has never been stronger. Like, the timing couldn't be worse. He just lost a different election, and if he loses again, he'd be giving up huge amounts of power. But he gets to stay president regardless. Let's make it all make sense. So what got Macron so riled up that he felt the need to go all in and call a snap election? Well, it was the result of another election at the European Union level.
A weakened French president, Emmanuel Macron's party, was trounced by candidates for Marine Le Pen's Nationalist Party.
Every 5 years, there's a big vote in Europe. Hundreds of millions of people across all 27 member states of the European Union, they elect members of European Parliament. So they draft laws, steer policy, and handle budgets at that European level. But to figure out who wins, every country that's part of the EU runs their own vote. So let's take France, for example. If you were a French citizen voting in the EU elections, you would have had distinctly French choices. Rassemblement National, or the National Rally, that's the party of Marine Le Pen. Anti-immigration, skeptical of the EU. Or maybe you were on Team Besoin d'Europe. That's a coalition of parties, one of which is the party of French President Emmanuel Macron. So here's how the vote actually broke down. A stunning rebuke of Macron's centrist coalition, a big victory for the political right. Now, remember, this doesn't change anything in France, and it doesn't even necessarily represent a seismic shift at the EU level, because Macron's coalition, just to use an example, ultimately gets combined with centrist parties across Europe, from Germany, Hungary, Slovakia, Italy. You get the idea. All 27 member states are having the same election. Together, those centrist parties form a kind of super centrist party that did end up losing seats this weekend. But still held on to third-place position. Marine Le Pen's big victory, that contributed to all of the other far-right victories in Europe. They all contributed to the overarching Identity and Democracy Party, which represents the far right in European Parliament. Now you'll notice, neither party is top dog. That honor went to the European People's Party, which politically is a combination of all of the center-right parties across Europe, falling somewhere in between the politics of Macron and Le Pen. But again, none of that matters for Macron's political future. What he saw was the devastating loss registered in France, locally.
His coalition came in second, well behind Marine Le Pen's far-right national rally, which is on course for nearly a third of the vote.
I think that what he's trying to do now by calling these early elections is he's trying to bank on the fear of voters.
Cette décision est grave, lourde, mais c'est avant tout un acte de confiance.
What Macron is doing now by calling a snap election is kind of like telling his opponent, okay, you won the away game, but now let's play at home and see who wins. What makes this so confounding, though, is that Marine Le Pen and the far right have never had as much momentum as they have now. If we look at the most recent polling we have, the weekend elections across Europe, 4 political parties lost ground. All of them represent centrist or left-leaning politics. The 3 parties that gained ground, all representing the political right.
Je pense que c'est le peuple qui s'exprime d'un ras-le-bol général.
So why would Macron push all of his chips in, putting his own career at stake? Like, he didn't have to call an early election, right? He could have just ridden out the storm, stayed in power another 3 years, and then used that time to slowly turn the tide. Well, let's consider a few things. 1, Macron wants clarity. He says as much. So scathing was the outcome of the French EU vote. Macron believes citizens of France must now make a clear choice.
Leurs représentants atteignent près de 40% des suffrages exprimés. Je ne saurais donc, à l'issue de cette journée, faire comme si de rien n'était.
2, he's already in a bad position. He has no majority. Getting any bill through the National Assembly is already a struggle. So what power would he be holding on to? Maybe now's the best time to grab the reins and do something drastic.
He's trying to regain the initiative by calling this snap election. His hope is to taking advantage of the parliamentary election system to create a situation where he can build a coalition against the far right.
And 3, there is a chance he could win. Maybe he can capitalize on a swell of national pride with the Olympics coming up in Paris, or maybe he can mobilize voters who abstained this weekend, thinking maybe they'll come out and vote when it really counts. But
this is suicide. This is suicide.
They are voting to say no to Macron. And there might very well be a majority of hard right at the National Assembly.
So how does this play out if Macron does indeed lose the election? Well, it's not like here in Canada where, if there's a snap election, the whole government could change, including whoever's in the top job. In France, the snap election call is just a legislative election call. It's not a presidential election. So if Marine Le Pen's party were to win a majority, Emmanuel Macron would stay president. But he'd have to appoint a prime minister, typically from the party that wins the most seats, and that would mean sharing power, where the president keeps control of foreign policy and defense, while the prime minister takes charge of domestic affairs and budgets.
An arrangement like this would make France, I would say, almost ungovernable. Macron is a staunch believer in the EU. The far right wants to completely dismantle the bloc from the inside, and they have completely different views on immigration, Ukraine, the environment.
But there's one more reason to roll the dice. Maybe losing isn't so bad. Analysts say surprising his political opponents by kind of throwing them into the deep end of governance might just give them a chance to look bad.
Maybe Macron actually wants the far right to come to power and govern France, because he's secretly hoping that they would become so unpopular during this time that he would have his party swoop in and be the savior against the far right in the upcoming 2027 presidential elections.
It would be as if Macron was saying, okay, you think you can do a better job, prove it. And Macron knows there are tough times ahead. For example, France is in a rather large budget deficit situation right now, which means that any future government would have to make some tough choices. Do you raise taxes or do you cut spending? And maybe, just maybe, when Macron's term is up in 3 years and French voters are faced with a fresh choice in the presidential election, they'll say, maybe Le Pen wasn't the right call after all. That's Macron's biggest gamble of all. Give Le Pen 3 years worth of rope to hang herself with and hope it all goes according to plan.
And after Macron's announcement, there were already protests across Paris and other cities against the far right. And then on the other hand, you have far right sympathizers that are saying that now is their time to shine.
So of course, this could all turn out to be a colossally terrible move for Macron. Either arrogant for thinking that he could win against such long odds, or defeatist for ceding so much power when he could have held on for years more. But this could also turn out to be quite a clever strategy, a calculation that losing the battle ultimately will help him win the war.
Emmanuel Macron has given his first interview since calling the election on Sunday. He told the newspaper Le Figaro that he is out to win, and he dismissed the notion that he's simply handing power over to Marine Le Pen and her allies. He said calling this election was a good decision and in the best interest of his country. Coming up, the 7-year-old boy who blew everyone away.
Attention all passengers in coach 257. It felt awesome.
His perfect announcement and the passion behind it is next in Our Moment. Well, this is Nico DeMoro, 7 years old, and he's already traveled many of the railways around the world, virtually that is, on transit simulators like the one he's using right there. So when he was offered the microphone on a commuter train in Toronto this weekend, he knew just what to do. His dream come true is Our Moment.
Attention all passengers in coach 257. Coach 257 will not open at Maple.
It was really great. The CSA agent, he just, I think, saw how into it Nico was and asked him if he wanted to make an announcement for Maple.
And just press the button when you talk, okay?
And I think he was just expecting Nico to say that the next stop is Maple, but then he came out with, you know, the whole thing.
If you are located in coach 257 and wish exiting at Maple, please make your way through the train in the opposite direction the train is traveling. Once again, Maple's next. It felt awesome.
You're so good!
Where did you learn all about that? How to say that announcement?
YouTube videos.
He enjoys watching YouTube videos on transit and playing transit simulators. What's your favorite simulator to play right now?
Stepford County Railway. Next stop, Port Credit.
We will be back on the train, I'm sure, shortly, right?
Yes. Oh, it was a dream come true.
7-year-olds are so cool. Like watching that, I'm thinking back to when my sons were 7. And, you know, shout out for those of you watching across the country, let's make 7-year-olds' dreams come true, because it can be so simple, right? Like the simplest things are delightful. And he, of course, with that announcement, nailed it. For all of us here at The National, thanks for being with us. You can watch anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app and subscribe to The National's YouTube channel. I'm Ian Hannamansing in Vancouver. See you tomorrow night.